Hi everybody, my name is Sean Fox and I'm delighted to be your professor for the semester here at University of Central Florida. Welcome all of you to General Psychology. The purpose of this video is to kind of give you a little bit of an introduction to the course, some of my policies, the way the course is laid out, and essentially just to give you a good foundation to start this semester with. Now, the first place I'm going to start is going over a little bit of an introduction, both to me, but also to the course and how to start getting some of the assignments done at the beginning of the semester. So the first thing I'm going to go over, and throughout this presentation, I'm going to kind of alternate between showing you in Canvas different features, different things I'm going to be talking about, as well as the PowerPoint. So the first few things I'm going to go over is the welcome page, the instructor page, which is embedded in the welcome page, and then I'll talk briefly about some communication preferences. So let me go ahead and switch over to Canvas here. Now, when you log into Canvas, this is the page that you're going to see when you click on the course. This is the welcome page. You can see up top here it has my name, Professor Sean M. Fox, my email address, and if you scroll down, there's a couple of different features here. Now, if you're just logging on for the first time, it's the beginning of the semester, where we're going to want to start is with this Start Here module. Underneath that, though, you will see where there's individual links for the course syllabus, my instructor page, which I'll go into here in a second, as well as a direct link to the office hours and then the modules button. Now, after you finish all the material in the Start Here section, and say this is week 2, week 3, you're just logging into the class, this is the page that comes up, but you want to get into this week's assignments, you're going to just click on the modules button. Or over on the side in the navigation bar, you can also just click on modules. But since this is the start of the semester, let's go ahead and click on that Start Here module. So when you click on the Start Here module, you're going to see where there's the welcome video. There will be a link to the syllabus, so make sure you look at the syllabus, read over it. The syllabus, besides including all the somewhat boring, I know, information that you all look forward to not reading in the syllabus, there is also a calendar located in that, so I suggest at the very least you skim over the syllabus, you look at that calendar, and you print it out or you save it, put it in your phone so that you know the due dates and you don't have to keep going back to the syllabus. The second part here, or third part rather, step 3, is resources. So this is a list of different school resources, either that are embedded like in the course that I go back to and I include in each weekly module, or other types of resources, like on the bottom here is school resources for things like veterans, student learning and academic success, career services, things like that. Now, I'm going to come back to this in a little bit, but you will also need in this resource section to look at the videos that are included here for Android phones or iPhones. Sounds kind of weird, but I'll come back to that here in a second. Basically, there's going to be a project that'll be due in the project 2 when that becomes due, where you'll need to activate the screen time monitor for your phone. So I always say at the start of the semester, just get that done. It doesn't cost anything. It's just a feature that's in the settings. So make sure you activate it so that when that project comes around, you'll be able to do it. You won't be waiting until the last minute for it. So going back to that Start Here module, the last thing that you really need to do, and this is the most important thing, is to take the orientation quiz. Now, the orientation quiz is how I determine whether or not you're present during the first week of class, so very important that you do that for attendance purposes. You also need to take the quiz and pass it with a score of 100% in order to unlock additional course content. So if you skipped over all this, or say you did take it and you only got like 80 or 90%, you go to jump into the course, you figure I'm fine with 90%, I want to get this started. You log into it, you click modules, you're going to see where they're all grayed out. You must pass this with a score of 100% in order to unlock the remaining content. So very important you do this orientation quiz as soon as possible. really, I say within the first day or two of starting the semester. You can take it as many times as you need, but you definitely need to have that score of 100%. Now, going back to the welcome page here, remember I said there's also these links for the instructor page and office hours. So if you click on the instructor page, you're going to see a goofy photo of myself, a little bit of a bio about myself. I'll save you the boredom of me telling you about it now. If you want to go into it, you're more than welcome to read over my little short bio. I kind of have a non-traditional background for a college professor. You see another link here for my email address, some courses that I've taught, academic interest, and if we have a teaching assistant set up for this course, you'll see their information listed below as well as their contact information. Now for office hours, every semester I always have office hours. They do tend to change from one semester to the next. They are always virtual. I don't live in the Orlando area. I live in the Tampa Bay area. So it'll only be virtual unless I guess you happen to be visiting St. Petersburg. And I'll be happy to meet with you. But otherwise, we're going to meet through Zoom. So if you click the link for office hours, you'll see where there's a link for the Zoom office hours as well as the official hours that I have set up. Again, this can change from one semester to the next, but it'll always be listed here. If you cannot make the official office hours, that's fine. Just send me an email to let me know that you can't make those hours and that you'd rather do some other hours. And incidentally, the office hours are completely optional. They are for you to show up. If you have a question for me, you are confused about something, you need clarification, that's why I have those office hours. The preferred way for you to reach out to me, though, if you do have any types of questions, is to use the inbox feature on Canvas. That is the absolute preferred way of reaching me. If for some reason you're sending me a file, like a video or a large paper, Word doc, or something like that, then I would suggest that you send it to the sean.fox@ucf.edu email, because that's a little bit better for doing attachments versus the Canvas inbox. The reason why I prefer Canvas inbox, incidentally, is because when you send me a message that way, it'll automatically populate with the course information, which is incredibly helpful because every semester I teach multiple courses. I teach them at different times, so some of them are late start, some of them are full semester. And if I don't have that course information, it really, really delays my ability to get you the answer that you need. As far as how I respond to emails, I always respond to emails, communications within 48 hours. However, please note that I, generally speaking, will not respond to emails sent after Friday at 5 p.m. until the following Monday. I don't answer any emails at all on Sunday. And if you send me an email, say at 2 or 3 p.m. on Friday, I'll probably answer it on Saturday. But if you send it after that 5 p.m. cutoff, I won't answer them until Monday. Just kind of keep that in mind because a lot of the assignments are going to be due Sunday at midnight. So if you wait till Sunday and you send me an email, you're not getting a response. And that's important because things like late policies, stuff like that, you need to notify me prior to the due date. Now, as far as if we have a teaching assistant in this course, please understand if you have questions about an assignment that a TA has graded, then reach out to them. If you have general questions about assignments, what's required in them, what's not required in them, or general content questions, ask the teaching assistants. If, however, you have issues with another student in the course, some kind of personal issues with bullying, anything like that, contact me directly. If you have an accommodation, you have a question about that or about it not being followed, reach out to me for that. Request for submitting late work, those you need to reach out to me for also. So just kind of keep that in mind. There is a clear division there. Now, going back to the PowerPoint here, the next thing I wanted to talk about, it's a little bit different. You'll see later on as I go through this presentation, it's embedded in the course. But I also try to bridge this gap of you being in an online class by having a lot of different videos available for you. I actually have my own website called skepsi.net. So this is what it looks like. And there's a whole host of general psychology videos available. Simply click on that link for general psychology, and you'll see these embedded throughout the course. I'll show you that a little bit later in the presentation. So what you do is you simply go to the chapter that we're in. So the first chapter we're going to cover is History of Psychology, or Intro to Psychology. And if you click on that, you're going to see where there's a whole host of different videos. There's always, the first one listed is always going to be a general overview video. Those are a little bit longer, a little bit more comprehensive. And then we have what I call micro-learning videos, which are usually under 10 minutes and are more detailed on more specific concepts. All the videos are in YouTube. They do have transcripts available, and they are subtitled in English. So please make good use out of that, especially if you are somebody who maybe doesn't necessarily like reading as much. You can watch these videos. Also, because it is through YouTube, I gotta do my shameless plug here. If you do like the videos, you like the content, they're completely free. Please, when you're on the video though, just subscribe, give me a like on the individual videos. That's all I ask. Going back to the PowerPoint here. So, I talked about the Skepsi videos. Went over the Start Here module, what you need to do with that, and I also covered the syllabus. So please make sure you look over those, and especially for that Start Here module, as soon as the semester starts, as soon as you're able, like the Monday, the Tuesday, try to go in and get that quiz taken care of so you're marked present for attendance and you can unlock the additional material in the course. As far as required material, right? Textbooks, things like that. What's needed, what's required, how much do you have to spend? Well, I have some good news for you. As far as the textbook goes, I make a point of having the textbooks I use be free open resource books. So these are things that you can find online. The book that we're going to be using for this course is through a website called openstacks.org. And it's Psychology 2nd edition. So if you go to OpenStax yourself online, you go to openstacks.org, click on Social Sciences, and then go to Psychology 2nd edition, and it'll pull up. However, the textbook, the chapters we'll be covering, is embedded in the course for each module. I'll show you that in a little bit. So you don't really need to go to that website unless you wanted to. Access is completely free. You don't have to register. There is nothing you have to pay for at all. As far as other material that you need, you do need to have access to a computer. I know oftentimes with online courses, students tend to do a lot of their work using their phone. I can tell you right now, you're going to have problems with that, especially with uploading, downloading certain assignments. So please at least have access to a computer for submitting assignments, and that computer needs to have reliable internet. And you also need to use Google Chrome to access Canvas. That's just a Canvas feature. They work best with Google Chrome. Now, in addition to that, you may need a microphone and camera. The reason why I say it may be needed is that this is a completely online course. There is no, virtual office. There's no virtual classroom time or anything like that. It's completely online. The exams in this course are not set up so that you have to take them using anything like HonorLock or Proctorio or anything like that. But this is where the maybe needed part comes in. If I start to see where cheating may be a problem in the course, I always have the option of activating HonorLock for the exams. So if I do that, you'll need to take the exams on a computer with a microphone and camera because it's going to record you taking the exam. So those may be needed. They aren't necessarily going to be an integral part of the course, but they may be needed. So I just like to let people know that up front. And then Microsoft Office. So the certain assignments in this course, specifically the projects you're going to have to do, are going to require for you to download Microsoft Office and Microsoft Word document and submit those in a Word doc. And in fact, if you try PDF, you try Google Docs, anything like that, Canvas isn't going to allow you to upload it. So it must be Microsoft Office Word. If you don't have Microsoft Office on your computer In that resources tab I showed you in the Start Here module, there is a link for you to be able to download Microsoft Office for free. So that includes Word, it includes Excel, it includes PowerPoint. All you have to do is use your UCF student email address and you have free access for a year. So I'm saving y'all a lot of money. You don't have to buy a textbook and you don't have to pay for a Microsoft Office. So you are all very welcome there. The last thing, and I'm sure this is absolutely not a deal breaker in any way, shape, or form for most of you, is you need to have a smartphone, or at least you're going to be needing it for one of the projects. So this is what I talked about when I covered that resources tab, that you'll need to activate the screen time monitor on your phone. So that's going to be a big part. If for some reason, say you happen to not have a smartphone, just reach out to me at the start of the semester and I can arrange for you to do an alternate assignment. But this is going to be something that's required for Project 2. So please make sure that you do that at the start of the semester so that you're not rushing to do it at the last minute before Project 2 is due. For most of you, it's probably already activated and you just aren't aware of it. So assignments. In this course, there's a couple different assignments. The first one I'm going to talk about are the chapter quizzes. These are worth about 20% of your grade. There are 15 total chapter quizzes, so there's one chapter quiz for each chapter we cover. 15 total at 1.25 points each. Out of all of the chapter quizzes you're going to take, out of the 15, I drop your lowest 5. My viewpoints of the chapter quizzes is these are just there to help you study. They're not really what we call high stakes assignments. You can take them as many times as you need to. The highest grade will count. Now, keep in mind, you can take them as many times as you need to, and you'll have access to all the course content, all the chapter quizzes, as soon as you do that orientation quiz, so you can even work ahead. But if you submit the chapter quiz after the due date, it will go back in default, and it'll override any prior attempts, and it'll show it as being late, and then you'll also be marked with a late penalty. So don't submit them late. But do work ahead. That's fine. Do take them as many times as you need to get that score of 100%. Your lowest 5 will be dropped. That also includes if you don't take the quizzes. So if you happen to just miss a quiz that week, that'll just have to count as one of your dropped quiz grades. Exams. So there are 3 total exams in this course. None of them are cumulative. Exam 1 just covers the first third of the chapters. Exam 2 covers the middle third. And then Exam 3 covers the final third. Each exam is worth 16.25 points. They are timed. They're 25 question, and they're timed at about 45 minutes for each exam. You can only take them once. I do drop your one lowest exam grade, so the exam assignments, the 2 that count, are worth about 33% of your grade. There are practice exams that'll be available that'll pull off the same test bank. Those are non-graded. You can take them as many times as you need, but the exams themselves can only be taken once. Discussions. So there's going to be 6 total discussions throughout the semester. Each of those discussions is worth 1.25 points. Generally speaking, the initial post for the discussion board will be due on the Thursday of the week that they're open. And you must respond to one student by the following Sunday. And it'll be prior to midnight for both of those. Grammar, punctuation, writing is all taken into consideration for the discussions as well as your content. And the discussions are based off the projects. If you don't have time to do the project prior to that initial post on Thursday, just review it. You don't have to have completed the project in order to do the initial post for the discussion. But you do need to at least review it for the most part. Projects. So just like there's 6 discussions, there's 6 projects. They're worth 5 points each, so they're worth a little bit more. None of them get dropped, so this takes up a big chunk of your grade overall. It's 30% of your grade. I already mentioned Project 2, how you'll need to have that screen time monitor activated on your phone. But also as we go through the semester, As we get closer to project 5, look at that project the week before. So in project 4, make sure you look at it. I'll also remind you through announcements in this course about that. I usually send out at least weekly announcements, and I'll say, hey, look ahead to project 5. Because there's things you need to do over the course of a week for project 5. So that's why I say look at it in advance, because if you look at it the last day it's due, you're probably not going to get them done. And then finally, there's what's called an immersive research experience. So this is actually set up in a separate course in Canvas, and it mostly involves 2 main components. Either you participating in research by doing like online surveys and quizzes and questionnaires, or you reviewing research and doing kind of like a short paper on it. That immersive research experience is broken up where there's 5 little milestones throughout the semester where you have to submit at least 1 or 2 assignments in each of those milestones to get the full points. I'll show you how to access that here in a second. The other kind of component, it's not a graded assignment, but it is highly recommended, are the study guides. So the study guides are embedded in each of the modules you'll go through every week. And in them, it'll give a list of key terms. Those are the key things you need to keep in mind. Those will also be your study guide for the exams. There'll be critical thinking questions, just questions to kind of get your mind going and kind of applying the knowledge that you're learning. And there'll also be a link to the PowerPoints that I typically use if I was teaching this as a face-to-face class. Some students kind of like those, some don't, but it helps them out. All right, so now let me look over the module page and show you how just a typical weekly module is set up. So going back to Canvas here, I'm going to go to our modules section. Remember that if this is the beginning of the semester, you do need to take the orientation quiz. So I'm in the modules section in Canvas. You'll know that you fulfilled that requirement when next to it there's a check mark. Right? If it isn't fulfilled, you'll just see where it's a 0, and all these weekly modules will be grayed out. Now, the weekly modules may change depending on if you're taking the course in the summer, or if you're taking an express class versus a full semester class. But this is generally how they're all set up, right? It'll say the week, it'll say the dates for that week. There'll always be the chapter modules, pages listed. So for every chapter or chapters that we're covering for that week, there'll be a specific page that kind of gives an overview of that topic. The learning outcomes are very important. This is kind of like the key things that I as your teacher, expect for you as the student to know from each of those chapters. And then there'll be a step-by-step guide on how I expect for you to go through and learn this information so that you know these learning outcomes. At the bottom of each of these, there'll be a link to the study guide, the link to the videos, so that's the videos that I just showed you through Skepsi, the link to the textbook, and then the link for the chapter quiz. So those are all located under each of these modules, the actual pages, the chapter modules. Underneath that, you'll see a link of the assignments that are due. Almost every week, in addition to the chapter quizzes, you're also going to have a project or a discussion. If you are taking an express class or a summer class, sorry folks, you're probably going to have both a discussion, a project, and chapter quizzes that are going to be done. And you'll also see where there'll be a separate link here for the immersive research experience that I talked about. Now, you don't complete these in this course. You complete them in a separate course, and I'll show you that in a second here. You see the link for the quizzes, and then if there's any important information on the bottom, like for example, for this first week in this class, I have it set up where, hey, remember, if you don't have that screen time monitor activating, you have it activated for the next week's assignments. Importantly, for all of the assignments that are due, you will see underneath the actual assignment where it'll have the due dates listed. Discussions are almost always due where the initial post is on Thursday and then the response is on Sunday. But for other things like quizzes, the immersive research experiences, those can kind of fluctuate. So make sure that you definitely look at the due dates underneath those. And again, that you go to the syllabus and pull out that calendar so that you're aware of it. Now I'm going to leave the student view here for a second. I'm going to show you where to access that immersive research component. So if you go to your dashboard, you'll see where you'll be signed up for another course that just specifically says immersive research. That is where you actually do that immersive research components, and it'll explain in there how to do it. This is a separate course. I do not set that course up. That's set up by the school. Their requirements may change from one semester to the next as far as what is needed and what's not needed, as far as who to contact if you have a problem with it. You do all of your work in that course. I have access to that course, and after the milestone steps for each of those components, the assignments that you must do, I'll go in and I'll pull your grades off of it to see if you completed it. Right? So that's the only kind of interaction I have with that course. So make sure at the start of the semester you do click on that course link also and look at whatever information that instructor wants for you to look at. So let me go back to our course now and switch over to the student view so that it looks like it does when you get in here. And I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. All right, so we went over all of the different graded components, the assignments. Now I'm going to go over class policies here real quick. So the first policy is always the one that people are most interested in, is the late policy. You can submit late work in this class, however, there will be a point deduction, and that point deduction is 15% for each 24-hour period. What I mean by each 24-hour period is from 1 minute after the due date all the way through to the end of that 24-hour period. If you submit at any point during that time, it's a 15% deduction. After 24 hours, a minute after that 24-hour period, all the way through to 48, it's going to be a 30% deduction, and so on and so forth until it just gets a zero. I do waive the late policy, however, you have to notify me prior to the due date, and remember, I don't respond to emails sent after 5 p.m. on Friday until the following Monday, and a lot of assignments are due Sunday. So that means if you wait and you send me an email on Saturday or Sunday, I'm probably not responding, so you won't get that approval to submit it late. So that's a big thing to keep in mind. I also expect that you had an emergency that prevented you from being able to submit the assignments, and that you notify me as soon as possible. This is also true if, say, hey, look, I had every intention to do this work on Saturday, I got in an automobile accident or something like that, I was in the hospital, I wasn't able to email you till Monday, then you have to have some kind of proof to show me that. And you also must notify me within a week after, and that's for if you already missed the due date. But if you want an exception to it, you want an extension to the due date, you do need to notify me prior. Student conduct. So this is really important. Of course, you need to follow all the information that's laid out in the student handbook. But for this course, two things that are a little bit different. The first one is if you schedule an appointment to meet with me, right? So you can't attend office hours. You reach out to me, hey, Professor Fox, can I meet with you Tuesday at, 3 p.m.? I say, sure, absolutely. I can make that work. I'm available on that day. Here's the link to Zoom. And I'm on Zoom at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, and I'm waiting for you to show up, and you don't show up. And I wait 15, 20 minutes, and I send you an email, and you say, oh, I forgot. If you do that, if you schedule a meeting with me, and then you fail to show up for that meeting, there is a 2-point deduction to your final grade. So the moral of the story here, if you schedule an appointment with me, show up. If you can't make it, notify me. If not, you do have that deduction. The second thing to keep in mind is I am very big on professionalism. I'm very big on courtesy, on manners. And it's a two-way street. I show my students this, but I also expect it from my students. And I expect my students also treat my teaching assistants, if I have them in this class, with the same type of respect that they'd show me. So using inappropriate language, and it's unfortunate I even have to mention this, but for example, and these are real examples, you're biased against me because fill in the blank reason, you don't like students, you don't care about your job. Sending me an email that says something like that is not going to go well. Cursing at me, and I have had students curse at me, is not going to go well. Show respect. I will show you respect. If you don't, then this is where this policy comes into place. And for it, I will warn you, right? If things are getting heated, say you're sending me emails, they're kind of going down the wrong path, I'll say, I think we need to take some time, calm down, and reach back out to me tomorrow when we have a little bit of cooler heads, right? If I give you that suggestion, folks, take it. Don't say, don't tell me what to do, and then start firing off more and more nasty emails to me. The first time that happens, there will be a 1-point deduction, and I'll notify you of that. If it happens again after that, it will be a 2-point deduction. It's unfortunate that I have to have these rules, but folks, I do have to have these rules. Past experience has shown me that. Turn it in. So the projects that you'll be submitting in this class will go through Turn It In. It's just embedded in the course. So when you submit it, when you upload the file, which again has to be a Word doc, there'll be a little box on the bottom that you have to check saying that you're going to agree with it being submitted through Turn It In. Now, generally speaking, if the similarity score on that is above 20%, not counting if it's reading the questions, because you have to download a form and then upload it, notwithstanding that part, it shouldn't be above 20%. If it is, then what you need to do is you need to make whatever changes that you need and then resubmit it. And I'll show you how the projects are kind of designed here in a second. There's always going to be a little video that goes over it, though, and there's a specific form you need to download. That's in a Word doc. So again, when you're submitting those, can't be over 20%. If it is, resubmit it, unless the report for Turn It In is flagging the questions. And you can read those Turn It In reports after you submit it. Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, but if you go into your grade book, you'll see next to that project, there'll be a little colored banner, and when you click on it, it'll show you what the report says, and it'll give you a similarity score. And that's what I'm talking about with the 20%. Last thing on here is academic integrity. So for academic integrity, please, please, please don't cheat. Bottom line. If you cheat, you get a 0 for the assignment. If it happens again in the class, you do risk getting an F for the course altogether. So just don't do it. Don't sell yourself short. So module layout and suggestions. So this is kind of, I'll show you again how the module's set up. I'm going to show you the way that those projects work and also the exams. So I already showed you the weekly module. I showed you kind of how to progress through these. When there is a week where we'll have an exam, you'll see where there'll be a separate section for the exams. So for here, it says Exam 1 Instructions and Guide. There's a link to those practice exams. So these are little short quizzes that pull from the same test bank that the exams pull from. You can take it as many times as you need. Every time it will probably be slightly different questions. Same thing, incidentally, for the chapter quizzes, right? You can take them as many times as you need. Those are graded, though, but you'll get slightly different questions each time. And then the link for the exams. Now, the projects, when you do the projects, there will always be a video listed with them. They'll be listed under the assignments and the modules. So make sure you watch the video, make sure you read the instructions, and then make sure you click on the form and you download it. And again, these are going to be in Word document. The projects are all very self-reflective. So remember I said you can't go above that cutoff for Turn It In? You really shouldn't, right? You shouldn't be plagiarizing when the questions you're being asked is, what are your opinion of this or that? The projects are very cut and dry too, in that there's steps, right? So there's basically prompts that you have to do. Go through each one. Now, some of them have a minimum amount of words that are required to be written. Like, for example, this is project 1, step 3, it says 200 word minimum. So after you download it, in the space below it, you type out the answer. You do not cut and paste these, you must download them, right? So you'd actually click here where it says download it as a Word doc. Don't switch it over to Google Doc or anything else. Fill it out as a Word doc and then submit it as a Word doc. And it must be submitted as a Word doc or else Canvas will not accept it. Now, the last question for every project is always going to be the same regardless of the project. So let's say step 8, in the space below, write about what you believe the purpose of this project was and how it helped you in applying the terms or concepts learned during this section of the semester. Please also specify if there are any terms or concepts that you still don't feel comfortable with. If you have a question on the content, each of these projects are based on the chapters we're covering during those weeks, ask it. Either myself or the teaching assistant, if we have one, will answer it when we grade your project. If you have a question that prevents you from doing the project, then ask that prior to submitting it, right? But say if it's a question on content for some other content that we covered. So for example, project 1 is going to be based off of the first 2 chapters. Say you have a question about something like, what is structuralism, which is a theory of early psychology. I'm having a hard time understanding structuralism. Write that here. And in the comments, you'll get a response to that. So it's a really great way to kind of interact with your instructors. Every project and every discussion will have a rubric. So make sure you read that rubric because it is extremely precise. And by looking at what you need to do, it ensures that you're going to get a good grade. So that's for the project. The discussion is set up like any other discussion. It's always going to be based on the project. And if you go here to the 3 dots, it'll show you the rubric, and there's a rubric there as well. All right, so going back to the PowerPoint now. So I showed you how the modules are laid out. I showed you the discussions. I showed you the projects. This is my suggestion now as far as how you should proceed throughout the semester. So the first one is use the study guide as your roadmap. Remember, in that, there's learning outcomes that say what you need to know. So at the end of that chapter, you should be able to look at those learning outcomes and answer them. There'll be a list of key terms. These are the big things you need to focus on, that when you're studying, however you're studying, you're writing the notes out on, are these key terms. And then the critical thinking questions that are included for those study guides are just meant to help deepen your understanding, help make you actually be able to apply the information. Once you have that study guide, you look at it, you print it out, you copy it, whatever the case may be, then do one of 2 things. If you're somebody who likes to read, then read the textbook. If you aren't, then my suggestion is to watch my videos. Use the notes, though, as a guide. So as you're listening to the videos, and I mentioned something like structuralism, that's one of the key terms. All right, I'm going to write down what structuralism is. Likewise, if you're doing the book. Now, if you still have questions at the end, say you've been focusing on watching my videos, there's a few things you're not sure of, then go back and look at those sections in the textbook. Take the chapter quizzes frequently. When they're open, do them. Do them as many times as you need. The chapter quizzes will pull from a test bank. It'll change slightly every time you take it. Only your highest grade will count as long as you do it within the due date. So take as many times as you need. Repetition is your friend here, right? The more times you have exposure to the content, the more it's going to click in, the more you're going to remember it. And some of those are going to end up being on the exam. So win-win. Do the discussions in the projects then, right? At least review the projects prior to doing the discussions. Big key part on that. For the most part, you'll be able to do the discussions, which are just kind of open questions about the content in the project and content for those chapters. You should be able to do them without having finished the project. Of course, it's probably ideal that you finish the project and then do the discussion, but it isn't strictly speaking required. If you have questions about content and you didn't ask outright, put them on that project. Put them on that last step of the project that I just showed you, right? Always be the last step on it where it'll say, do you have any questions on content? So make sure you put them there. For exams, make sure you use the practice exams beforehand. Those pull from the same test bank, and that's going to be in the little study guide for the exam. Also, the study guides for each chapter is basically your study guide for the exams as well. Now, those practice exams are free. They're ungraded. They're optional. They're not things that you necessarily have to do, but students who do well usually do them. And then, of course, if you have questions, please ask. Oftentimes, I see where students, especially students in my summer classes, my express classes, they wait till the last minute. They dig a big hole for themselves, and then they expect, in a week or two before the semester ends, that reaching out to the professor is going to magically make everything better. And it doesn't, right? When you dig a hole that deep for yourself, sometimes it's impossible to get out of it. So don't get in that habit to begin with. If you start struggling at the beginning of the semester, reach out to me, attend my office hours, have a meeting with me so I can meet you, I can give you some suggestions, and I can help you. But the time to do that is at the beginning of the semester, not at the end. So that's pretty much it, folks. I know you're all going to do really well. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you over the next couple weeks. So welcome to General Psychology. And of course, again, please, if you have any questions, anything like that, reach out to me. I'm always here to help you. Take care.